僕は AJ とやりたい IWGP ヘビーでお願いします。
夢の IWGP ヘビー級王座へ世界の怪物 AJ スタイルズに挑むニュージャパンプロレスリング2015 Road to Invasion Attack.
We live in a world where even kings have vices. Well, and we are the kings and we are your vice. You see, we're the true kings, the kings of the night, kings of the lights. Roppongi Vice. Roppongi. Roppongi. Roppongi Lights. Roppongi Vice. Roppongi. Roppongi. Roppongi Lights. Roppongi Vice. Roppongi. Roppongi. Roppongi Lights. Roppongi Vice. Roppongi. Roppongi.
Beretta and Romero ain't nothing I'm swift.
4-finger rings. It says Vice, man, the homeboy mono, and with Demon got a sights in. Roppongi streets is what we're reppin'. Chaos is the faction, and here is the weapon. Beretta on your side, that's a joke. Beretta on my side, question mark, dope. Roppongi nights, Roppongi lights. Kings don't sleep, so don't sleep on the Vice. Roppongi. Roppongi. Roppongi Lights. Roppongi Vice. Roppongi. Roppongi. Roppongi Lights. Roppongi Vice. Roppongi. Roppongi. Roppongi Lights. Roppongi Vice. Roppongi. Roppongi.
Beretta and Romero ain't nothing I'm swift.
Dressed to the nines, eye patch wearing, fur on the bandana, all the girlies be staring. New best friends, alright. Shout out to Chucky T, make it 3 amigos and just add me. Beretta and Romero, we going click clack, all you other juniors, you better step back, forever is forever. You best remember that when Trenty and Asuka walk away with them straps.
Roppongi Vice stays up real late, drinking in hotels like weirdos, and then we go eat McGriddles from Japanese McDonald's super early in the morning.
Roppongi.
Roppongi Vice. Kozlov.
Roppongi Lights.
This is in memory of you, buddy.
Roppongi. Roppongi. Roppongi Lights. Roppongi Vice.
How's it going, everybody? Luke Force here on War Extra. It's been a long time since we have done any kind of War Extra show. Usually, of course, I would be joined by either Sean Cunningham or I would be joined by the good brother Shotgun Shan. Today, unfortunately, neither man available, so I was faced with that challenge. Do I throw in the towel? Do I go it alone? Get my solo monster on, if you will? A little more freedom here on War Extra. I've got a Guinness going right now, which has actually become a Sunday ritual, as it were. And here we are, sitting in the studio, alone. How about that AJ Lee? Retired, dramatic air quotes, from the WWE. She found a way out. Really does look like, if you look at the timing of it, that Miss April Jeanette wanted that last WrestleMania payday, God bless her, and that she had no intention of anything further after that. So she went in and she did it, and then told him she quit. And a lot of people are going to say, if you're not completely familiar with how these contracts work, a lot of people are going to say, can't the WWE, sue her for duties of her contract, not filling the dates of her contract? And the thing that people need to understand is that at any point, any wrestler can go to Vince McMahon and say, I retire. What that means is you have to retire. What that means is you can't go anywhere else. And obviously, it's going to be held as long as your contract goes. If you're on a 3-year deal and you're only, a year and a half in, you're going to have to wait another year and a half before that contract is expired, before you could go anywhere. But as we saw with the Rey Mysterio thing, it could even be a situation where they roll it over for another year because you haven't fulfilled the duties of the contract. You still owe time, you still owe some of your bid. You're not going anywhere even if the contract has expired because you didn't fulfill the contract. Now, you could look at this either way. In the sense of Ray, I thought that was like a pretty low move. Just because he'd given so much for so many years. And with him, I mean, it was injury-based. He didn't want to be there anymore. You really didn't have anything for him anymore. Other than the fact that they liked that merch money. Which again brings you back to the fact of why, if you like the merch so much, why didn't you kind of position him better on TV, protect him a bit more? And you really could have sold some merch because he'd be hot. But that wasn't the mentality. But I would be amazed if there's many guys other than John Cena that sell more action figures than Rey Mysterio. The masks, obviously, are a huge source of income as well, or were at one point. So in the sense of him, I thought you'd already gotten your money, and then some, out of Rey Mysterio, because of what he did in that ring, and a lot of that was in your company. Making stars, giving his body so that people could get over. And that's how guys get over, is by talented wrestlers that are willing to go in there and kill themselves, especially in WWE. I mean, he did work with a lot of, especially on the SmackDown brand, and my God, after he won the title, not to call Mark Henry a hack, but you know what I mean? I felt like you got your money and then some, and that's why he had been sitting out the contract. It wasn't because he just, didn't want to come to work. But moving on to, like, AJ saying, I want out, and I don't think anyone should be held against their will, but I mean, if she's not going to compete for you, how long are you going to keep her under contract? Now, the fact that they did that little thing on Raw, I don't know. I think they'll probably just let her go. What point is there to keep her if you're not going to ever bring her back, if she's never going to come back? You would think, though, unless they really did like AJ, unless they really do feel bad about the way things have gone down, and the awkwardness and the tension that must exist. I mean, think about this. When AJ's hurt, she has to go to Dr. Chris Amon. And, it's one of those things where if you take from my wife, you're taking from me and vice versa, because it's all one income. I mean, that must have really, truly been awkward to be around the man that is suing your husband. And, of course, it's not legally the WWE behind the lawsuit, because it can't be, because of the settlement. But, I mean, they've made it very clear whose side they're on. And I don't think anybody would be shocked or surprised to know that WWE is paying for his lawyer and taking care of him. And they put out the video to definitely show that, they're on his side, and that CM Punk was not telling the truth in that podcast. So again, in the coming weeks, myself, Shotgun Shan, Sean Cunningham, we'll all be breaking this down. This is not a story that's going to go away anytime soon. Could be years. So we're going to have to sort of see how it unfolds, but it was interesting to all of a sudden just one day log on to Twitter and see, AJ Lee retires from WWE. And, again, they seem to have been respectful. If they really had bad blood and if they really wanted to fuck her over and whatever, they would have buried her. They would have. I mean, look at Lita. So there's that situation. And again, we'll talk about that more. Right now, we're going to get into New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it really was a week for New Japan. I mean, I didn't think a whole lot of Raw. And I definitely want you guys to check out, because it's a great compliment, a great accompaniment, even, you could say, to what I'm about to say now for the next 20 minutes, which is a little review on a show that happened about a week ago. This week, they gave you an extra 52 minutes. And in that 52 minutes, they covered a show that I'm about to talk about. Last Sunday's New Japan Pro Wrestling Invasion Attack pay-per-view. Now, this one was a special one for me, because it featured a match that I've wanted to see now for the better part of 2 years. That being Kota Ibushi versus AJ Styles. And in wrestling, in North American wrestling in particular, there's not a lot of dream matches of two guys in their prime. There's a lot of dream matches you could put together of part-time legends that you could bring back, a Stone Cold or a Rock, but not guys that are in their prime, that have not worked each other, that have styles that you imagine would totally mesh and magic would happen. New Japan seems to have found the perfect way with so many guys, and a lot of these matches still have not happened. I'm thinking of AJ and Nakamura. That's never happened. I don't even think they've been in the ring together, and that's on purpose. Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi. Everybody wants it. You need it for some big show. down the line, you're going to have it, and it's not a match that's burnt out. It's like basically the ace in the hole. And Tanahashi and Kota, Nakamura and AJ, there's a whole bunch of other great matches that you could put together that have not really happened very much or not at all. But one of them, and the one that was almost the biggest dream match of all for me, was Kota Ibushi versus AJ Styles. I've wanted to see this match. They had a tag, I believe it was the end of last year. They had a tag match where Kota Ibushi and AJ got in the ring a little bit. It looked good. The chemistry was there. I mean, it was everything you would imagine, really, in terms of the chemistry and the timing and all that stuff. But going into this match, the build-up was that Kota Ibushi had won the New Japan Cup. The high flying is unparalleled. The moves this guy can pull off, other than Ricochet, are some of the most breathtaking, almost video game-esque moves. Moves that you only could imagine. That's the kind of stuff Kota does on a nightly basis. And it's not just a high flyer. And this is what really makes him special. Everything this guy does, he is liquid in the ring. The reports have been out by Uncle Dave talking about how Kota has really become a big draw. And there was a lot of speculation when word came out and when he won that tournament and got the right to challenge AJ for the title at Invasion Attack. You know, that he was not going to be a big enough star, a big enough draw to fill up Sumo Hall. And what happened was the opposite. It was sold out. Turns out Mr. Kota Ibushi has really become a huge draw with the female audience. And he's bringing in a female demographic. The way that he interacts with the fans is something so special. It really reminds me of Ricky Steamboat. I think a lot of people have talked about Kota and sort of made the comparisons to Steamboat. Just because he's one of those guys that you can't possibly hate. And Ricky was a baby for his entire career. And it's because he had that baby gene. You hear about the heat gene, right? The Eddie Guerrero heat gene. The Ric Flair heat gene. Kota Ibushi has the babyface gene. And so did Ricky Steamboat. I can't imagine, assuming he does have a long career ahead of him. He's about 33 right now. But I can't imagine a time when they would possibly turn this guy heel because, again, everything he does is likable. From his wrestling style to, again, the way that he interacts with the fans, the way that he thanks them for all their praise. The guy's phenomenal. And so going into this match, I figured, AJ's really been kind of getting over him and really learned how to be a good heel. I never predicted it would be Nakamura versus Ibushi from Wrestle Kingdom. With that said, I still think it's got to be in that short list of best matches of 2015 so far. And we've had a number of them, really. But I would put this one very high. I wouldn't rank it, again, over Wrestle Kingdom. But I would say it was a phenomenal match. It met up to the expectations. For those who would be interested in seeing some of the stars of New Japan, and I'm talking some of the very top stars of New Japan, live, in person, in front of your face, you will have the opportunity if you live in the Philadelphia area. But for all of us here in Toronto, we are so excited. May 15th and May 16th, New Japan Pro Wrestling invades Ring of Honor Wrestling. We're talking the two best in-ring companies on the planet. They did a show in Toronto last year. This year they're doing 2 nights, May 15th and May 16th at the Ted Reeves Arena. Tickets are still on sale, but they are going fast. We will be there, folks. Wrestling Audio Revolution will be in attendance. Stars that have been announced so far from New Japan to appear at the Ted Reeves Arena on the 15th and 16th. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kazuchika Okada, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kushida, the legendary, one of the most inspirational wrestlers on the planet. We're talking about a guy that not only invented the shooting star press, not only invented the Stardust press, which is now used by Tetsuya Naito, not only the Swanton Bomb, used by Jeff Hardy, not only the running sit-out power bomb, the Liger Bomb. This guy created so many moves. But not only that, he is inspirational because this is a gentleman that returned to the ring, has had a long career after suffering a brain tumor. So Liger, truly one of the most influential and inspirational wrestlers of all time. And he will be in Toronto. He will be in Philadelphia for these shows in May, War of the Worlds and Global Wars. Now let's get into this pay-per-view. We'll just quickly go through the show, and I really want to spend the majority of the time talking about Kota versus AJ, because that was, again, the big match. But there was some other really great stuff on this show. Alex Shelley, Captain New Japan, Kushida, Yohei Komatsu, and Yuji Nagata, the legend, the anti-aging hero, defeated the man I just was speaking about, Jushin Thunder Liger, Manabu Nakanishi, Ryosuke Taguchi, Sho Tanaka, and Tiger Mask. And really what you need to take out of this match, moving forward, is that Alex Shelley got the pin on Sho Tanaka, and this, of course, would be setting up something a little bit later on, but you can tell in the booking, done intentionally, having Alex Shelley get the win with his finish, clean in the ring, setting him up for something. What are they setting him up for? More on that later. Second match, Hiroshi Tenzan, Satoshi Kojima, and Tomoaki Hanma defeated the Bullet Club, Cody Hall, Tama Tonga, and Yujiro Takahashi with the lovely and talented, I hear, Mao. Mao is something else. She really was the highlight of this, although Cody Hall has a ton of potential, man. That guy is so big. The pedigree, obviously, of being Scott Hall's son, but he is so big and agile. This guy's able to jump to the top rope with ease. Is he green? Yes, but he's in the right place. I mean, they have the track record of turning out great wrestlers in the New Japan dojo. And he is somebody that seems to have a lot of presence. I am already starting to see the personality. And again, the work, once that's there, which is only going to happen with time. And the beauty is they are putting him in there with good people. I mean, even in this match, you had Kojima, Hanma. These guys are great to be getting experience from. These guys have been up and down. And Tenzan, for that matter. So anyways, but the baby faces went over the Bullet Club in this one. And moving forward, I believe the pay-per-view debut of a tag team called Roppongi Vice, Trent Beretta, who is now just known as Beretta. I guess he can't legally use that name. That's a WWE name. But they defeated the Young Bucks, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson. Not just your usual New Japan junior tag, bunch of moves, bunch of spots, Young Bucks match. There was a lot more to this. And anyone that says that those guys are just spot monkeys, that don't actually have any psychology, don't know how to wrestle, they are missing a lot. Because just watch this match. Trent Beretta's look, I did have a problem with. But again, it's one of those things you never know. I know with the Bucks, it's them being ironic with the tassels and everything. So I don't know if Trent with the neon lime headband is, I would assume that's also him being ironic in some way. It reminds me of Matt Taven. And I tell you what, I could never stand Matt Taven with the headband. Ever since he's taken it off and he's fucking combed that Pauly Shore hair, put it in a ponytail, I like Matt Taven a lot more. I always thought he had a lot in the ring. Trent Beretta, I think he has a lot in the ring. The look doesn't do much for me, but I feel like it's intentional, so I guess I just need to reserve judgment on that one. The next match on this review of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Invasion Attack 2015. A phenomenal fucking match. I kid you not, this match was amazing. It featured Kenny Omega, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, taking on Mascara Dorada, who is a CMLL import. He has signed a contract with New Japan and will be with them for the next year. I love Dorada. Dorada is so goddamn entertaining, has some of the coolest moves I've ever seen, some dangerous fucking moves, but at the same time, some stuff that is absolutely breathtaking, very creative match, a lot of different things that were done in this match. Essentially, Kenny was sort of the glue. He was the one that made it all stick together. Dorada was the Flash. He was the guy that had all the crazy different things. And one in particular that I've seen him do before, but it still just blows my mind, is when he runs at Kenny Omega, who is standing on the apron, facing inside the ring, like he's going to do a springboard in. Dorada goes running full steam ahead, jumps over the top rope, hooks Kenny Omega in a Hurricane Rana. Kenny Omega Hurricane Rana'd off the apron onto the floor. And he does this like a cat. And again, for both guys, absolutely insane to take a move like that. I love any time that he gets thrown into, I'm talking about Dorada, anytime Dorada gets thrown into the corner and he does that weird little rope walk where he jumps onto one rope and then sort of walks backwards, turns around, flips around, and kind of ends up on the other rope, on the other side. I think that's amazing. I love both guys. Kenny Omega is as crisp as they come in the ring when it comes to his technique. He does the Finley roll. Now, if you don't know what the Finley roll is, it is a move that was created by Finley, first of all. But it's essentially you get the guy in a fireman's carry like an F.U. John Cena move. Instead of throwing him that way, you sort of roll forward. So you do a somersault on top of this guy that's on your back, that you're holding in a fireman's carry position. And then you usually kind of either end up on your ass or maybe you sort of roll and sort of get onto your feet somehow. Kenny Omega snaps onto his feet. He does the roll and just in one movement, again, like a video game, just does a complete handspring, lands right on his feet. There are way too many spots to talk about in this match, but another one I will get into was when Dorada had Kenny Omega. I think Kenny was going to give him like a superplex, and he started climbing. He was going to give him a superplex to the outside, and he climbed to the second rope and was trying to give him the superplex, and somehow he got out of that position. And Dorada gets on the top rope and does an Undertaker rope walk over to Kenny Omega, who's standing on the second rope, and does the Undertaker rope walk and then a Hurricane Rana from the top rope. Kenny Omega getting Hurricane Rana back in the ring this time. So you got to see this match. To anyone that isn't signed up to New Japan World, I really do suggest this is something that you look into. Because it's something that not only will entertain you, you'll get to see some of the best wrestling in the world, but you can learn about the history. The Hulk Hogans, I'm talking about the Ric Flairs, I'm talking about the Stan Hansens, I'm talking about the Bruiser Brodies, I'm talking about every great in the world, essentially. Even Randy Savage has matches on New Japan World that you can watch. And usually when these guys go over to Japan, especially Hogan, it's a completely different style. You really get to see some of these guys that you thought you'd seen it all from pull out things that you just had no idea was in their repertoire. Because again, when you go over to Japan, you got to wrestle. So yeah, you guys check it out, but especially for matches like the Roppongi Vice, especially matches for Kenny Omega versus Dorada. But anyways, the finish comes. He gets him up. Kenny Omega gets Dorada up in the electric chair, which he usually turns into the one-winged angel. Sort of an electric chair where you bring the guy forward into a sit-out powerbomb, Michinoku driver kind of thing. Dorada gets out, counters into a sunset flip, and Kenny keeps rolling with the sunset flip, gives him the tiger uppercut knee lift, spins him around, puts him back in the electric chair, hits the one-winged angel. 1, 2, 3. Kenny Omega retains against Mascara Dorada in another fantastic match. Again, you got to see this. If you're into that style, if you're into the juniors, if you're into the fast-paced stuff and the creative moves and the creative sequences, you really got to see this match. Mascara Dorada, a great addition to New Japan, and hopefully we will see a reign with him as the junior champion at some point. But for right now, what happened after the match seems to be the direction they are going. And we talked about Alex Shelley in the last segment, going over in that opening tag match, pinning Sho Tanaka with his finish. And they really did this in an awesome way. Kenny's out there cutting a sort of a cocky promo. And a lot of people shit on Kenny's promos. And they say he can't talk, etc. And to an extent, you're kind of right. But you have to also understand where he comes from. He's a DDT guy. And DDT stands for Dramatic Dream Team. And it's really one of the top promotions in Japan. I wouldn't say it's necessarily number 2, but I wouldn't say it's any lower than number 3. I mean, it's pretty well known in Japan. Both Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega both come from DDT. They were a tag team for a long time there, and all kinds of places around the world, including New Japan. But their whole style is very much overacting. There's a certain element of camp that goes into DDT, and that's really not something that they do by accident. It's definitely something that they have used as their branding, and they're not opposed to doing some kind of freakish things. And it's a freak show promotion for the most part. I mean, their tag team name, Kenny and Kota, was the Golden Lovers. It's very unique, a very unique promotion. And if anyone has ever seen the video on YouTube, it's gone viral by this point, of Kenny Omega taking on the 9-year-old girl Haruka. it's something else. Really it is. And again, that sort of gives you an idea of what DDT's about. And Kota Ibushi taking on the blow-up doll as well, which has become another viral internet sensation. So anyways, this next match, what did we have? The Kingdom, Matt Taven and Michael Bennett with the lovely Maria Kanellis, who the Japanese cameramen basically give a rectal exam every time she comes out. They are so far in that girl's ass, they can tell what she had for breakfast. So, the Kingdom of ROH. This is, again, more of the working relationship that New Japan has with Ring of Honor, which I hope goes on for a long time. And I hope that these yearly visits to North America continue for a long time. Because usually these interpromotional angles, they don't really work. And the working relationships, they work for a little while. But then it tends to always go sour. It tends to always go south. Companies start getting upset with how their guys are used, or companies start feeling they're too big to do business with anyone else, which was the case with TNA. I'm sure they would be dying to do a business relationship with New Japan at this point, considering they work with Muda's group at this point. But, this match was fine. It wasn't, and there was nothing bad on the show. The Kingdom, though, being in New Japan, to me, really exposed them. It's one of those things where you put them in New Japan and you really get to see that they're good for where they are. They're good tag team for the spot they have, but they're definitely quite a few steps below in terms of work. And this match was essentially the Smoking Guns versus the Godwins. Sunny was played by Maria Kanellis, and she was out there distracting, and Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows were in this match defending their titles. Anderson was completely infatuated with Maria, and it turned into a situation where he got distracted and ended up getting beat because of it. These guys have only just won the titles back after losing it at Wrestle Kingdom in January and losing it to Haruki Goto and Katsuyori Shibata. I mean, they only just lost the titles then and then already won them back, I think, the next month, and now they've lost them again to the Kingdom, of all people, who I said, again, it's no diss to these guys. They're just not on the level of even Carl Anderson, and I think he's a great wrestler, but I mean, he's not like one of the best in the company, and I mean, they're not on his level. What I found was interesting, and maybe there's a few more hints throughout the show regarding a breakup of the Bullet Club coming. I wouldn't say in the immediate future, but at least the wheels are starting to turn regarding the angle of maybe even just a change in the Bullet Club, some different people coming in instead of the ones that are all there. Because at the end of this match, after Anderson ended up getting distracted and then getting beaten by the Kingdom, Doc Gallows was not happy with Anderson at all. And those two are like brothers, not just in storyline. They're the ones that are always linked together, always tag champions, etc. Those two are brothers in real life, man. Those guys are always on the road together. And they do the podcast, which you guys should check out, Talkin' Shop on MLWradio.com. Hilarious. These guys are absolutely just, tears will be flowing from your eyes when you listen to their podcast. They are hilarious. And again, very close, always on the road, have been for a long time. And I don't like the idea of them breaking up. I just don't think it's like the Click breaking up. Or it's like the Click facing each other there a few weeks ago. It's something that you just can't buy into. And it just is one of those things where if the idea is that Gallows or Anderson, I certainly hope not Anderson, is getting kicked out of the Bullet Club, and this is sort of the beginning of that, I don't know. I guess eventually it has to end, right? But I mean, it's still a money-making thing. And again, of all the people that I would have sort of with a rift between, it wouldn't be Anderson and Gallows. So I didn't think that much of this match, but again, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Moving forward, so this match again, a very good match. Haruki Goto, Tetsuya Naito, Togi Makabe versus Chaos, Shinsuke Nakamura, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yoshihashi. Again, this was not meant to be the big focus of the show. Real facts, too, of why they book things the way they do and why they have a lot of these multi-man matches, which a lot of people will say are pointless and just filling things on a card. And I completely disagree with that for the most part. Up and down this card, I think there was something that was being pushed in each match. When you look at the opener, it was to give Shelley a win, to kind of put it in people's minds that Alex Shelley is, doing things right now and makes it more believable when he's challenging for a title if he just got the win earlier in the show. So I thought that's good. In WWE, they'd probably do the opposite. They'd have him lay down and then challenge for a title after. But not in New Japan. They really seem to always be thinking, if this guy's going to be the next challenger, he's going to have a win. And especially earlier in the show, I think that's the best way to do it because it's very fresh in people's minds. So Alex is the guy that's sort of featured in the opener. In the second one, again, it's Hanma. Because every time he gets a win over anybody, but especially anyone in the Bullet Club, the fans go nuts. So again, it's building up Hanma as sort of the undercard Bullet Club hunter sort of thing. And he doesn't win that much, but when he does, it makes the crowd excited. They love him. And he's not somebody that's necessarily going to go up the card. He knows his spot, and his spot is to be that undercard hero. And he is. He does it great. So that was sort of the story on match 2. Roppongi Vice are a new team that are coming into the division. They're a great team. They have a great theme song. And the goal was bring them in with a splash. They go over the champions, the Young Bucks. The Bucks haven't held the titles very long either. I talked about Anderson and Gallows not holding it for long. The Bucks haven't either. But in this situation, it was the right team because they're a team that's going to be there all the time. The Ring of Honor guys, I don't know how long the Kingdom's going to be around in Ring of Honor. But for right now, Roppongi Vice is pretty much, on a lot of the tours that are going forward. So that makes sense to me. Kenny Omega versus Dorada obviously was to showcase Dorada as somebody to look out for, in the future. And also for Kenny to get a strong win over somebody. And then obviously after the match, and I didn't get to talk about this yet, but I'm going to now, what they set up, Alex Shelley was one of the guys that was down there, and they'll do this a lot, where guys will have people in their corner. Baby faces will have 2 or 3 other wrestlers in their corner. They'll usually be, in a jumpsuit, like they're not in their gear anymore or whatever. And it's like in real martial arts or in real boxing, you have your camp that's at ringside, and they're not going to get involved. They're just there to watch and to offer support and to shout instructions, if the guy's in trouble. And you didn't really even notice Alex Shelley was one of the guys out there for the match in Dorada's corner. But after the match, after he'd received that devastating move, the One-Winged Angel, what happened was Kenny's talking some shit on the mic, and I had mentioned the whole DDT thing, so I think that's where I left off. And he's talking about how he's already defeated all kinds of Japanese garbage. He's defeated Mexican garbage, to which he yells rice and beans. And then he says next is American garbage, in particular Motor City garbage. And again, until that moment, Alex Shelley was just kind of in the background as one of the guys helping him up. And then when that happened, he obviously stood up and looked at Kenny Omega. So Alex Shelley is going to be the guy challenging next for the junior heavyweight title. I think that's a great idea. He's got the work, and I think if you push him in Japan, again, with his look, and his whole natural charisma and his wrestling ability, he's going to be somebody that is a draw. So it's a win-win, and I think Alex Shelley, I don't know if the plan is to just have him challenge once and get beat, or if maybe potentially they're considering the idea of him having a run. But moving forward, again, the match with Haruki Goto, Tetsuya Naito, and Togi Makabe, defeating Chaos, Shinsuke Nakamura, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yoshihashi. This match was, again, one of these multiple-man matches, which are done for a number of reasons. For booking reasons, but they're also done for physical reasons. In a Nakamura main event, in a Tanahashi main event, in an Okada main event, when they're on the big stage defending their title or whatever the big match is, I mean, these guys kill themselves. They absolutely kill themselves, and they can't do that every night to protect the guys physically, but it's also done to protect them from a booking standpoint. And I was kind of fascinated with the finish of this match because usually in a situation like this, you would look at it and you think, okay, Yoshihashi's taking the fall. That's why he's there, so that Shinsuke doesn't have to lose, so that Ishii doesn't have to lose, because again, they have big matches coming up. Shinsuke will be defending the title, the IC title, against Haruki Goto, which is a kind of an interesting match. I always thought those two looked more like a tag team than anything. They have a very similar look in a lot of ways. But Goto's cool. He's capable of having really good matches, very stiff matches with Nakamura. And he's kind of like a modern-day Japanese version of, like, Chris Kanyon. You know, Canyon's whole claim to fame in those days of WCW was that, yeah, he was a good wrestler and everything, but he had all these really creative moves. He'd put a twist on a simple move. That's kind of like what Goto is. He's got all the strikes, and he can really brawl, and he's tough as nails, but he's got, whenever he does a move, it's usually a normal move with some kind of cool twist on it that Goto has created. 1, 2, 3, in the middle, clean. They build up Goto as the challenger going forward. The next challenger for Shinsuke Nakamura's IWGP Intercontinental Championship. So again, that was cool. Next match, not so cool. But again, there's a reason behind the booking of Tanahashi. And I think a lot of people had been curious as to what was going on. Why was he always in tags now? This is supposed to be the John Cena. This is supposed to be the top ace of the company. Why is he always wrestling these tag matches, these multi-man matches? Why at the New Japan Cup was he beaten in the first round in 2.5 minutes by Yano? Why is he still feuding with Yano? I thought he's supposed to be in the top mix, wrestling for the world title. Here's the reason. He's banged up. Tanahashi has been on top in this company. I think his first reign was 2005, 2006. And he's been going strong ever since. I mean, other people have had the title, but he's been the constant. He's been the guy that's done it the most. And, he's had the most main events of anybody. So he's at a position right now where his body's starting to catch up to him. Because, again, his matches are always knockdown dragouts. You look at the Okada series. Look at all of the Shinsuke matches that he's had. I mean, he has been through the ringer. And it's gotten to a point where they need to slow down with him. They need to protect his body. And when he comes here for Global Wars, don't be surprised if he's in a tag match. And New Japan is pretty smart for doing that. They do it with Liger as well. Liger's 50 years old. He can still go. He can still deliver a really good singles match on some occasions. But for the most part, it's best to keep him in a tag. He can come in, he can do his signature stuff, and he can get out. And that's going to be Tanahashi for a while. And I'm sorry if people don't like that, but the guy's body comes first. They want to keep him, obviously as a part of the company, a big part of the company. But this is his angle right now with Yano. So this match with the Chaos members, Kazushi Sakuraba and Toru Yano, they actually defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi and Katsuyori Shibata. Now, everybody that knows New Japan Pro Wrestling knows Shibata is basically the man with the reputation of being the stiffest wrestler on the planet. The kicks are absolutely, I think most people would classify them as reckless. He does have an MMA background. He's a guy that broke in with Tanahashi and Nakamura in the same class of their dojo when they were starting, the New Japan dojo. And he went on, and you can find matches on New Japan World of him facing Tanahashi, like in those early 2000s and stuff. And then he went off, and he kind of, I think a lot of people feel like he turned his back on the company, that they invested in him. They brought him through their dojo. They invested in him. They put the money in him. And then he decided he wanted to leave wrestling. Sakuraba, one of the most, if not the most famous Japanese MMA fighter of all time, a pioneer of MMA. A guy that's still on, a special night such as Wrestle Kingdom 9 in there with Minoru Suzuki can still have a really great, really exciting match. And I actually do look forward to him and Shibata. But I feel kind of bad that that's Shibata's spot on the card right now. I feel like he should be a lot higher. But again, I don't know the backstage. And I've heard that obviously over the years he's been a little difficult to deal with. So whether or not that's the case now or whether they're just holding him out for another time, I don't know, but he's in there. He's going to be working with Sakuraba. And again, this match wasn't anything to write home about, but really the build was not even too much around Tanahashi Yano as much as it was Sakuraba and Shibata. Kazuchika Okada with Gedo, the booker of New Japan, taking on Bad Luck Fale with Tama Tonga was the next match. This was one that I think most people felt like, not particularly hot for this one. Don't really need to see Bad Luck Fale anymore. However, the build for this had been really intriguing, actually. Because for months, Okada was in there on these shows getting powerbombed by Bad Luck Fale in the middle, clean, and pinned 1, 2, 3. This is Okada, coming straight off of Wrestle Kingdom. Okada is, you could call him number 2, you could call him number 3 in terms of popularity, but no lower than that. He's a mainstream star. He was actually in with Shinsuke Nakamura in the Pharrell Williams Japanese version of Happy. He's in soap operas. He's on talk shows. He's a star. But following Wrestle Kingdom, the fact that he was unsuccessful to beat Tanahashi for the title in the main event, he went on sort of a losing streak. He went on a depressed period. And he'd reached his kryptonite with a guy by the name of Bad Luck Fale, who is, most people would consider, the worst in-ring talent in New Japan. But he's so different, Fale, than everybody else that I kind of feel like he belongs 100% because he has his own thing that you don't see in any other matches. And it's not necessarily pretty, but he's that big, bad wrestler that, isn't about finesse, but he's about smashing. He's about throwing you at the powerbomb. He's still green, but I think that they've done a lot for him in terms of protecting him, especially when you consider his skill level and his experience. They've really gotten a lot out of Fale. They've really turned him into kind of this character that can beat even top guys. And he's beaten Nakamura. He took his title, and he's been beating Okada for the last few months. And then slowly but surely, Okada ended up fighting his way back, and they would put them in tag matches, and he would get the Rainmaker on Saitama Tonga. He didn't end up pinning Fale for a while there. He'd have these tag matches where he'd pin other members of the Bullet Club. And then finally he had a tag match recently going into this show where he got the Rainmaker on Fale, and he did pin Fale after Fale had beat him, I think, 3 or 4 times, clean, straight. He finally was able to beat him in a tag match. And then we're going into this singles match, the semi-main event of this show, Invasion Attack 2015. And it's like, well, they're kind of in a spot where they're going to have to deliver something here. And it's not like Fale hasn't been in some matches that have been all right. So my expectations were low, but they were definitely exceeded here in this match. Okada waited not even a second. I think the bell may have not even rang yet. When he started to go on the offense on Fale. It was a totally different approach. It wasn't the Okada that had been pinned all those times that was down and kind of off his game and not aggressive. It was a whole new Okada. He was pissed off. He was tired of this whole malaise that had taken over his career since he was unsuccessful at Wrestle Kingdom. So again, I don't even think the bell rang, and Okada's on the offense, beating the shit out of Bad Luck Fale. And these guys had, I think, about a 15-minute match, and again, not bad at all. Okada really carried him with his aggressive mean streak. I think that was really the big story of this, was that Okada's back. And he ends up winning the match with the Rainmaker. And going forward, he will be challenging the winner of the next match, Kota Ibushi versus AJ Styles. So we get into this main event. AJ Styles versus Kota Ibushi. Luke Force's dream match taking place. And this match was absolutely phenomenal. Again, Ibushi's the greatest babyface on the planet. He goes in there with AJ. Crazy things. One of the best spots in this match to me, and this was a real movie sequence, you could almost say. Both AJ and Kota Ibushi have this striking sequence involving chops, backhands, mid kicks, low kicks, and then a spin kick. Or in AJ's sense, he does the spinning backhand. They have this little striking sequence, and each guy has it, and they've never wrestled each other. And this is the first time that they've ever had a one-on-one contest. So they go in there, and Kota does his striking sequence. Chop, chop, spin kick. And then AJ immediately starts and counters that with his striking sequence. Slap, slap, backhand, kick. It was just so phenomenal the way that they put their two striking sequences back to back to make one really big sequence. Kota hit the big triangle moonsault where he runs from one corner of the ring to the other, springs up to the top rope, moonsaults to the outside onto AJ Styles. They teased the move from Wrestle Kingdom that Kota did to Nakamura, where he had Nakamura on the apron facing the crowd, sprung up to the top rope, and German suplexed him backwards from the apron. In this case, AJ able to counter it, and he hit Kota Ibushi, and Kota just flew straight back into a back bump from the top rope. And they got all their stuff in. It was one of those matches that All the signature stuff was there, but everything in between was perfect. The selling was great. The finish of this match, though, and this is something you got to see to believe. Kota Ibushi, his finisher is the Phoenix Splash. Now, maybe you remember seeing this move at the Royal Rumble done by Seth Rollins, but you've never seen it done if you haven't watched Kota Ibushi. It is such a difficult move, and this guy does it with absolute ease. He jumps backwards like he's going to do a moonsault, and then in midair, turns his body into a 450 splash. So he gets up on the top rope to deliver the Phoenix Splash, which again, one of the most difficult wrestling moves. I'd say the most difficult high-flying move next to Ricochet's double moonsault. But he gets on the top rope, and I didn't mention this, but this really does play a lot into the finish here, and everything going forward, it would seem. Kenny Omega, I had mentioned him earlier in the show, how he comes from DDT, how he was a tag partner of Kota Ibushi. They were the Golden Lovers. And he was at ringside as AJ Styles' second for this match. But he did not interfere. Usually the Bullet Club does. He did not lay the boots to Kota Ibushi when Kota was outside. These two, like, it also needs to be noted that in Japan, they kind of recognize that these two are like brothers. We talked about Anderson and Gallows and how everything you see on TV is really what these guys are like in real life. They really are the best of friends. They really are always busting each other's balls and just having a laugh and having a beer. And Kota and Kenny are very much the same. Kenny Omega speaks fluent Japanese. And there's all kinds of hilarious videos online of these two playing video games and just talking in Japanese and laughing and all this stuff. Everybody knows in Japan that these two are super close. So Kenny did not physically get involved in this match with AJ and Kota. So when Kota's on the top rope about to hit the Phoenix Splash and AJ's down, Kenny Omega just stands on the apron and looks at him, looking very somber. And Kota for a minute looks at him and gets kind of slightly distracted for a minute, like, what are you going to do? You're my buddy, first of all, but like, are you going to interfere right now or are you not? And then when he sees that he doesn't, he goes for the Phoenix Splash. However, AJ Styles, as the camera pans, you realize is now standing. So on the final rotation of the Phoenix Splash, he is intercepted by a standing AJ Styles who catches him and puts him in the Styles Clash. 1, 2, 3. AJ Styles retains the IWGP title against Kota Ibushi. But what happened after the match seemed to be something that was no coincidence, and it wasn't something to be disregarded. It definitely is a direction they're going in some way. Whether it's a long-term, I think it will be, a long-term build towards something in the future. And it could possibly be, again, the whole erosion of the Bullet Club. Because Kenny Omega was in the ring, and the Bullet Club has now come down, and they're sort of filling the ring like they usually do, celebrating. And Kota's still laying there, sort of injured, and they're laughing about it. But Kenny Omega's standing there looking, again, very somber, very conflicted. He's just screwed his buddy out of his biggest match that he will ever have in his career for the world title in the main event after winning the New Japan Cup. And, it was really starting to sink in that I just screwed my buddy. Yeah, I'm a part of the Bullet Club, but I've been tight with this guy way before that. And I just screwed him out of his biggest opportunity. And I didn't want to. That was everything that you read in Kenny Omega's face. For what Kenny Omega lacks in maybe English promo, he makes up for in facials, in my opinion. And he really conveyed it very well that he was, felt guilty about it. He felt guilty about what he did to his buddy Kota Ibushi. So that's how the show goes off the air, and they do their usual press conference and all that stuff, and Stone Cold impressions, and all the same things you would usually imagine. So things like, I guess, are okay right now, and Kenny Omega is not going to act on this yet, but it seems to be somewhere they're going in the future, and I heard that possibly even, a Kenny versus AJ Styles match. Is it going to be the junior champion versus the world champion? Or is Kenny going to lose that title to Alex Shelley by somehow being screwed over by the Bullet Club, maybe accidentally? That's kind of what they did with Prince Devitt on his way out. So could it be something similar to that, where in Kenny's defense against Alex Shelley, maybe the Bucks somehow trip him accidentally, and then he gets the finish and he gets pinned 1, 2, 3? Or is this something that I'm getting way too ahead of myself and it's for down the line? Or, for right now, are we building to Kota Ibushi versus Kenny Omega? You know, Kota had left the junior heavyweight division after being sort of one of the top junior heavyweights in the company with Prince Devitt for a number of years. He was moving on. He was going up. He wanted to be a heavyweight. He wanted to challenge for the heavyweight title at some point. He did at this pay-per-view. I don't really see him now going back and saying, okay, well, I'll go back for the junior title. Especially because everything that you hear about where they're going with the booking for New Japan is that Kota Ibushi is the project of 2015. And we saw him win the New Japan Cup. And I just, again, don't understand what the logic would be towards bringing him back to the junior championship. With that said, anyone that's seen any of the matches between Kenny and Kota Ibushi in DDT will say that that is not a bad thing, that they're going to start wrestling each other. Maybe it just won't be for the title. Maybe Kenny will have lost the title. But if that's what we're getting, Kenny versus Kota, you are all in for some of the most hellacious matches you've ever seen. I watched a match that was an hour long with those two from DDT, which, again, these guys aren't just spot monkeys. They're not just moves. It's everything in between that's absolutely flawless. Kota Ibushi delivering a springboard hurricanrana to Kenny Omega, who is standing on the top rope to the floor. I certainly hope they don't try to pull that off again, because I think that was absolutely crazy. The matches those two could have on the big stage would be breathtaking. And if that's where they're going, that's cool. But again, what really stood out to me was the fact that Kenny seems to be conflicted. So maybe he's going to be the first one kicked out of the Bullet Club. Or maybe they're going to do something where internally there's guys within the Bullet Club that are not cool with each other. But again, a really interesting finish to that show. In terms of the difficulty of the actual finish of the match, I mean, that's a 10 right there. Again, it just seems too difficult, but they pulled it off. And coming out of this show, again, it wasn't like on the New Japan standard, it wasn't Wrestle Kingdom, that's for sure. But I thought it was a really fun show, and I thought that the direction of where things are going coming out of this show, I think you have a lot of really good shit on the horizon. And I'm really curious to see where they go with Kenny and Kota, because that was, you know, something that they really hammered home there at the end. So, thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed the show. The Commissioner, Shotgun Shan, they will be back next week for their respective shows. Check out my brother's Fedcast. Again, that is a perfect accompaniment to what you just heard in terms of my Invasion Attack review. If you want to hear more, go check them out. They did put out a bonus episode, 52 minutes, talking about Invasion Attack. But from myself, just me today, but I thank you all for listening. So peace, love, WrestlingAudioRevolution.com.